welcome back to the channel, peeps. Well, the doctor is absolutely pumped, guys. So we've implemented this new traction loss modification slash upgrade on the rear traction loss axle, and guys, it has really been a game changer for what I've been able to now set in SMC3 utilities and in game engine, in sim tools, and the overall intensity level in profile editor. We're going to go through these things very shortly, particularly what I've been able to modify now and refine in game engine in the extra one axis, guys, which is the traction loss. I'll show you the new filtering, and I'll talk you through all the stuff I've spent the last basically 16 hours working on in extra one to come up with the settings I've come up for a really great traction loss and an overall fantastic feeling 3 degree of freedom motion simulator. Now I'm going to pin this video to the front of all videos on the Doctor ADHD YouTube channel, because I think it's important when people find my channel when they're looking to build a 3 degree of freedom motion simulator platform, so they can see the modifications that have been done before they actually start their build using some of my other build videos in the series. As you know, I have a complete step-by-step series on how to build this 3 degree of freedom motion simulator platform, the Doctor ADHD 3 degree of freedom motion sim. And I think it's just important to highlight the 3 main modifications from those main build videos. These being, number 1, our front motor physical blocks, which limit our motor lever movement and keep them at the limitations of SMC3 utilities. 2, the upgraded front pivot caster on the midframe, very important for overall sim stability. And of course, 3, the latest and last mod slash upgrade, our widening of the rear traction loss axle. So guys, I'm going to do 1 lap of the vintage Nordschleifer track with a Lotus Cortina Mark 1. I'm choosing both of these because the meshing on this track is absolutely sensational. It is so rough, it's so full on that it really puts the sim to the test, the rig to the test, I should say. And of course, that Lotus, the way they are set up, guys, they've got heaps of body roll. You really see the dipping of the sim when you get on the brakes. You see the surge, guys, on the brakes and the acceleration, and you see the heave really come through the sim, the road meshing and all the holes and dips and stuff like that. It really comes through on the sim, particularly now I'm able to run my intensity level in Game Manager in the profile editor. You can see there at 95. When I started out, guys, before I did these mods, I was too scared to run anything above 40 for this track and this car. I could run it at 100, but I'm keeping it at 95, and I'll explain why we need to do that as well after we've gone through the race. So let's run the race. I've got the camera set up at the back of the rig so you can get a really good look at the rear traction loss, how that comes into play so much with these new settings, and how there's no chance of the sim tipping anymore with the widening of that. And I've got it set up so you can also see the rig. You'll see the heave. You'll see all the rig going through its motions with all the other stuff it does in the other degrees of force in Game Engine as well. So let's jump into this. As I say, I'm only going to do 1 lap. Then we're going to come back. I'm going to talk about all these settings and how I've refined them to where I think these are sitting really, really nice with gaming. Okay, guys, let's belt this track out. Now I'm going to be driving sort of rally style. You guys already know that the Doctor is an appalling driver, so I'll do my very best, but I'm really going to do this to try and showcase the traction loss, particularly with the modification, and how I can absolutely flog this car and not stress at all about things going haywire on the rig like I was worried about before. Let's belt this out. Opponent strength at 95.1, their aggression up at 77.8. Everything's optimal. Let's go. I'm going to have a crack at this. It's the Gessem Strecke Nordschleifer and the Sudschleifer in Nürburgring, Germany that we are racing on. I just like to call it the 1967 vintage or historical Nordschleifer with a little bit of the early Nürburgring. I really fiddled on getting my field of view a lot better as well, guys. That's all the dribble you're getting from the Doctor. Enjoy this lap. motion simulator to motion. So what I've ended up doing, guys, is in that lap I showed you guys, I've ended up blending 2 laps together because a couple of cool things happened. There was some accidents because, as I've already mentioned, you know, the doctor ain't the best of drivers, and also the AI up at that aggression, they just smash into you all the time and knock you off the road. So that happened a couple of times. So I've just blended 2 laps into one, showing some highlights, guys, because it'll highlight things happening with the sim. You'll see on the first sharp left-hand turn out of the starting straight, you'll see where I hit a gutter and almost roll the car. It goes up on 2 wheels. You'll see the rig sit right up on the right-hand side. Now, if that had been previous to me running those physical blocks in on those front motors, that would have tilted completely over. It probably would have tipped the rig. Okay, that's the sort of thing I was talking about before. Now that can happen. I'll tilt up like it does in the video. You'll see that, but that's as far as it's going to go. So you still get that feeling of the car going right up on 2 wheels, but it's not going to go all the way over. Even if the car rolled in that particular scenario, which it didn't, but if it did, you're going to stay safe. Your top frame is not going to be able to exceed the geometry set up by those physical blocks. That's why it's important to get those in place. Okay, so overall, guys, if I wanted to, in my game manager, in the profile editor, guys, in the intensity slider, I could run that happily at 100 and have no issues with the rig. The issue becomes, and I've mentioned this before, and it is very, very true, when traction loss is set up to be a really strong axis, a really strong degree of force, like we've got this set up at the moment on under X3 1 over here, it's set up all the way at 60 in its degree of force. It really puts a lot of pressure on those front 2 motors. When it's doing its thing and the front motors are doing their thing with their pitch and roll, you've got counter forces against each other. And so it puts those motors under more stress. Therefore, it's putting your timber brackets under more stress. It's putting your rig under more stress. I can actually hear my rig creaking and bending as it is. So I wouldn't want to go any higher than 95 for extended periods of time, especially when you're really getting on it like I was in that lap, deliberately trying to, you know, get the back end of the car coming out around sharp corners and stuff like that. Obviously, when I'm racing seriously, I'm trying not to lose too much traction, but I'm doing that in this demonstration, guys, so you can see how cool and how fun the traction loss is on those settings. Now, as far as all my degrees of force, nothing's really changed from my previous videos. Pitch is still at 32, surge is at 32, sway is at 5, rolls at 10, and I've got heave set up at 15. The heave on this track comes through so nicely. All the bumps and jitters and dips, they sort of share that pitch and roll to a degree, so it can get a little bit messy. You can definitely feel the surge coming through. The important one, guys, is that traction loss set at 60, guys, and where I've finished with my filtering and with my filters, and I did spend, guys, like I said, I've spent about 16 hours on this now, 2 days, easily a solid 8 hours in each day, trying different cars on this track and going through these filters, boundary, traction loss, and washout, trying different settings, chopping and changing things, and nothing is working as nice for me as far as I'm concerned, and the way the traction loss is working at the moment than what I've got set up here now, which is only the dead zone is being used and the smoothing parameters are being used. Smoothing at 48 and the dead zone at 2.2. That's what's giving me, I'm just going to save that because I just do it habitually. That's what's giving me that really nice traction loss you can see there. And you can see, guys, I have to actually plant myself in the back of the chair. I've got to plant myself in my chair really hard against the back, and I'm hanging on to that steering wheel for dear life sometimes. Maybe not such a good thing. I'm trying not to put pressure on the Fanatec, but sometimes it's hard, and this is the problem. These are the compromises you end up finding on a motion sim. It is completely different, guys, to a static rig. And I laugh. I watched a YouTube the other day of a guy who does a lot of YouTubes on Assetto Corsa and R Factor. He was in R Factor and he's on a race. I can't remember what track it was. He's talking about how great the road meshing is. The camera zooms out and he's on a static rig. You know, it's like, mate, seriously? Yeah, okay, you can pick that stuff up in your steering wheel, but you've got no idea what road meshing is all about until you have a motion sim, until you have to try and drive and stay in control of your vehicle at high speeds on a full-on track like this vintage Nordschleifer with a motion sim. It's really hard to control your car because you're getting jostled and jutted around all the time and you're hanging on. It's like you're really hanging on to the car in real life. So apologies as well, guys, for the camera. You'll see that because I use head tracking and I'm getting thrown around so much. You can see what's happening to my head in game with the traction loss and with the rig. It's fantastic. You're not going to get immersion any more than this, closer to you would be in the real car. So guys, that's it for today's video. I hope this has been a more comprehensive overview, particularly in Extra 1 with the traction loss and where we can sit now with our intensity levels, because in SMC3 we've sorted out our pulse width modulation frequency here. If we're using IBT2s, we're making sure we are not exceeding 20 whatsoever. I'm keeping mine below 20. I'm keeping them at 15 kilohertz because those IBT2s are only rated for 25 kilohertz, and that would be maximum. Okay, so I'm keeping them below 20, and hey, the rig's doing everything I need it to do. It's responsive, it's moving exactly how it should move. My minimum pulse width modulation sitting at 32. Motor 1 is at 215. I've mentioned before, because my rig has a worn uni joint and it sags a little bit to the left, it puts more pressure on my motor 1, on my left hand motor. So I have to have it a little bit higher to get the same response from it than I do from motor 2, which is on 200, and motor 3, which always sits on 200. And that is because, guys, you don't want to exceed 90, 95% maximum of what your maximum pulse width modulation could be. And in our case, in SMC3 utilities, that's at 255. 90% of that is roughly 229. So I've got mine below that, right? I've got my motor 1 sitting at 215 because it has to compensate. Motor 2 is at 200. Motor 3 is at 200. And my motors are no longer getting hot. They'll get a little bit warm if I've done a lot of laps. For example, on that particular track, if I really pushed it like I did the whole time and did 8 laps of that vintage Nordschleifer, they would start to feel warm to the touch. And that's fine, guys. It's just if they start getting roaring hot. And I'm thinking about down the track doing a fan modification on those motors. You can get round fans that come with some of the Intel computer chips. They're round. I'm thinking about getting a couple of those, doctoring up a coupling between those and the back of the motors and putting them right on the ends of the back, drilling some holes in the back of the engine casing and maybe a couple of holes at the front, so then some air can be drawn in from the outside ambient temperature, and some fans right on the end of those motors. So I'm thinking about doing that mod at some stage to mean that I can, keep my settings high, get all the absolute glorious dynamic motion simming that one needs, and keep my motors cool. So I'll keep you posted on that modification if I do that. I don't really want to remove my motor casing, but if I need to, I will. But at this stage, it's really only doing something for the sake of doing it. They don't get that hot now with these settings. Certainly my IBT2s are always cool as cucumbers. That pulse width modulation frequency has sorted that out. You guys stay safe, stay healthy, and take it easy out there.